what kind of person you are.
The military are taking people.
What is going on here? Are you even real?
Just because the whole world is going crazy doesn't mean we have to go crazy with it!
The following announcement has been paid for.
Oh, that's right, folks. It's me. It's the THC DOGG back for another thrilling episode of WMW Rezin. With me, of course, my delightful co-host, the I to the double ZY, Mr. Izzy. Hi, what's going on, my man?
Oh, man, we're just at it again, and been having so much fun doing this, putting together content, shows. They call it, the younger generation, right, they call it content, but we're putting together shows, and I'm having such a blast doing it, man. What do we got going on today?
Well, we got something right up your alley, my friend. I was thinking this weekend about, I was watching some like 80s, mid 80s to early 90s wrestling.
Okay.
And one of the things that always stuck out to me, and again, growing up in Connecticut, I was, obviously I was a WWF kid.
Right.
But when cable came in and I started getting TBS, I was able to watch Crockett, and then the magazines, the Pro Wrestling Illustrated, all those magazines were coming out. And I would see guys like Harley Race, eight-time champion, eight-time world NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
Right.
And he comes into the Federation after all these years, and they immediately slap a gimmick on him to differentiate. So today's topic of conversation is going to be the creation of gimmicks, the changing of gimmicks, and why certain promoters have a problem with that. Now, you yourself have gone under a couple of different names during your time in the ring. What is it that led to your change from American Kickboxer to Izzy High?
I was on television in Memphis, or they were developing television in Memphis. And the promoter thought that the American Kickboxer was a little bland for television because of the restrictions somewhat of the gimmick itself. So his original idea was for me to do a hillbilly gimmick called the Littles. And it was his kind of interpretation of like the Dudleys and whatnot.
Okay.
But then what I had to explain to him is this was Memphis, Tennessee. And I'm from Dayton, Ohio, is where I grew up.
Right.
And he had brought me down there to help develop television and my abilities in that. So reminding him that, hey, I'm from the North, man. And the minute that I screw up or slip up and not use this Southern accent, it's going to kill the gimmick dead or shit. So I had the idea, and it started with a conversation with a few other wrestlers a couple years before that if we could do anything else real gimmick-wise, what would it be? And because Kickboxer was so rigid of a gimmick and such, I hope everybody understands what I mean by such a rigid gimmick, meaning that I didn't want to do anything that would taint that gimmick or would make people feel stupid for ever believing in what I was doing.
Okay.
But I've been a pothead for years and years and years, and thought that if I could do a gimmick that was kind of a play on words, and it was kind of like everybody with the Sandman. Everybody knows somebody like the Sandman who would go to the bar, get drunk, lose a game of pool, and then get into a fight.
Right.
that's the way everybody related to the Sandman. Well, everybody knows some guy who was some kind of crazy little pothead that you never knew what he was going to do next, and you were never really surprised on what he was going to do next because you never knew what he was going to do next.
Right.
And that was kind of the idea behind it, is if you start taking it too seriously, the name itself, is he high? It's a question. It's the only name is a question. And my tag partner, Dr. Bud Ganja, the original PhD in THC with a minor degree in herpetology. And we were the tag team known as WEED, Wrestling's Extreme Execution Daredevils, WEED. And yeah, and again, that was developed because the promoter just wanted something different, something he thought would be more marketable. And the important things, again, with a gimmick is maybe it's not so much of a gimmick itself, it's more of an extension of yourself. And that's kind of what American Kickboxer, as well as Izzy High, has been, is just basically an extension of myself. Or as Spinal Tap would have said, I turned it up to 11. It's 11. Right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, that would be my best explanation, I guess.
Right on. So obviously, throughout the history of the business, there have been, I know during like the 40s and 50s, we had a lot of Nazis, we had evil Japanese, but I think the first real, and I think a lot of people would agree, the first real gimmick, the first real grab your attention gimmick had to be Gorgeous George.
Yeah, I would say so. And that was, again, guy's name was George Wagner, going off the top of my head. And he was a very talented wrestler, but he wasn't making any money. And if I remember correctly, it was his wife that said, hey, we got to do something else, or you're going to have to do something else.
Right.
So the creation of the Gorgeous George character or gimmick. And if I remember correctly, and this kind of slips a little bit away from Gorgeous George, one of the promoters, the first promoters to really push gimmicky wrestling, was a promoter by the name of Jack Pfeffer.
Okay.
And Jack Pfeffer is from that Northeast. He was part of that I believe the Gold Dust Trio. I'm not sure. I'm going off the top of Billy Sandow. But anyhow, Jack Pfeffer was also known for the knockoff gimmicks, where you would have a show advertised, and it would be Bruno San Martino, or
right,
Polo Brazil, or and this was him basically deceiving the fans and using these different gimmick names. But yeah, if I remember correctly, Jack Pfeffer was one of the first promoters to really use the gimmick wrestlers.
Sure. So over time, it changed when we got into, different, the wrestlers, the promoters always seem to love a war, because when you have a war, you've got bad guys automatically, and you can push those bad guys. Fritz von Erich, perfect example.
Right.
Not a Nazi at all. But a bit of an asshole from what I understand, but not a Nazi. Right. So that automatically, and when we got into the 80s, the Nazis and the Japanese became the Russians. And and then when we got into the Middle East, there was Muhammad Hassan, and there was, so that's always kind of a cheap heat, I think.
I think the underlying theme you're talking about is patriotism, though.
Yes.
That's the theme that they're trying to strike with the impulse buyer as well, is that patriotic theme, good old America.
And they're so dumb with that sometimes. I watched a match the other day. It was Bret Hart and Dynamite Kid. And the crowd started chanting USA.
Right.
And I'm like, neither one of those cats are from the USA, dude. What are you chanting for?
Canada and Great Britain, yes.
But it's crazy stuff like that.
But along that same theme, how many people stopped the chant and were like, hey, but how many people jumped right on? And
Exactly. And that's
that goes along with that thought process that people just want to be part of something. They just want to be
absolutely.
part of the team. And it didn't matter that neither one of the guys were from the US because people just wanted to be part of a team. They wanted to be part of it somehow. And that's the only way that they could rationalize being part of it, I guess.
Yeah, seems that way. So I think that the next, and I don't even know if it was a change in gimmick or not, but Andre didn't need a gimmick. He was a giant, legitimately a giant.
Right.
Strong, like crazy strong, and just a huge, massive human being.
Right.
And when they switched him in 87, when they turned him heel against Hogan, I think a lot of people, the older wrestling fans, the ones that weren't Hulkamaniacs,
Right.
I think that they didn't blame him for the change because he was the points they were. I mean, granted, it was with Heenan and everybody hated Heenan, but I think the slightly older wrestling fans saw that for what it was, and that was, in the 3 years at that point, Hogan had been champion. Why didn't Andre ever get a shot?
Right.
And that's a legitimate question for fans to ask.
Sure.
In the backstage, we all know why. Because if you put the title on somebody like Andre, how the hell do you get it off him?
Right.
It's like if Andre has a title and decides that he's not going to give that title up, I have a hard time seeing anybody making him do it.
Brock Lesnar in the same breath.
Exactly.
So let's think about this for a second and go down kind of almost a list of the different style of gimmicks that there was.
Sure.
There was the hillbillies at one time. Then you had the foreign menace. Then you had the masked wrestlers.
Yeah.
Then you had the overweight guy, who was, the oddity of itself at that time, kind of the sideshow attraction.
Sure.
And
like
then you had
haystacks.
Right, and then you had the legitimate wrestler.
Yeah.
Now, if there's more, maybe the effeminate, or but there's not much more of a range of characters besides that.
Right.
Does that make sense? So we're working within that realm right there alone.
Oh, yeah. And the funny thing is about the evil foreigner gimmick is, aside from the war, the war-based characters, you had people like the Rougeaus.
Right.
And it was easy to hate the Rougeaus because Jimmy Hart was there. And if they were working with Jimmy Hart, you wanted to hate them because Jimmy Hart, that was Jimmy Hart's job, is to make you hate whoever it is that he's with.
Right.
But they did that transition from fan favorites from Canada to moving to the US and becoming heels because they suddenly became patriotic Americans after leaving Canada.
Right.
And that gimmick worked. And to this day, I'm not sure why.
Because it's we did everything to try to please you fans. We waved the flags, we announced we're from here, and you still didn't like us. We did everything we possibly could to be your friend, and you still didn't like us? Well, fuck you. We did everything we could. You didn't like us, that's not our fault. That's you. And so now our problem is with you. We don't care if you like us anymore because we don't like you.
And that's, and that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. And you wonder how that affected their remaining, their time. I mean, I know Raymond retired early.
Well, think about it like this: who was the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion?
Was was Honky Tonk Man. I
Okay.
mean, now it's Gunther, but
Right. And when he first came out, what did he do? It's great to see you, ladies and
oh
gentlemen.
yeah,
It's so wonderful to be here. And
they
it's
wanted him as a face. Yeah.
and it was that same vein that they played into with the Rougeaus, and that same thought process is, hey, I tried to be, everything that you people wanted me to
Right.
be. I couldn't be enough for you. They even did if I remember, I definitely remember they did like a vote of confidence where they did a call in
Right.
to give a vote of confidence to the Honky Tonk Man. And publicly, they presented it publicly that the fans themselves turned on him. And so what else is the man to do?
But I tell you, he played that role so well.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, oh, it was just an Elvis impersonator. But yeah, but if that's what you think Honky Tonk's gimmick is, that's what he was doing, then people weren't paying attention.
Right.
Because the beauty of the Honky Tonk Man gimmick is that, yeah, he's an Elvis impersonator, but he insists that there's no Elvis. Like he's an original, like he's not, and that I think is what drove the fans crazy. Was
and
like
all of you are just happy to be here to see me.
Right.
I'm so happy that you guys are so happy to be here to see me. It's an absolute pleasure. Yeah. And
he just did, yeah. Same with Rocky Maivia, same thing. Put a smile on his face, send him out there in that silly costume, and the fans hated his ass.
Right.
So you mentioned the Hillbillies, and the Hillbillies, they've always fascinated me. The wrestling hillbilly. Do you think it's a Southern thing? Or I mean, like, because like up north, they had Hillbilly Jim, and they had Uncle Elmer, and they had those hillbillies, and
it goes right back to that Sandman again.
Right.
I think it goes back to the stereotype, and especially for the people of the North,
right,
playing to this stereotype that they have in their mind. Now, there's people in the South that have people that are just like the hillbilly characters, but they don't usually put them in the spotlight. They try to
right.
That's my special cousin. We only let him out during the holidays,
Exactly.
And, so that being said, that becomes again the oddity for the person up north,
right,
to see this, and
because there was no exposure there,
right, and so you also have kind of that tongue in cheek if you go back to Vince McMahon's actual history.
Oh, right.
Because the real Vince McMahon, he doesn't run anything anymore, but we're talking about the foundation that built everything. This man legitimately lived in a trailer park in fucking North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina, if I remember correctly. So that was kind of a tongue-in-cheek backhand as well from
not going back to the trailer, kind of a mentality.
Right.
All right, we're gonna take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. All right. We are back. So in the 70s, in the late 70s, we had, what was it, Sterling Golden. Was that? Yeah, Sterling Golden, who then went on to become Terry Boulder, who went on to become Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Now, I know that Hogan was fired from the WWF in '82 because of the Rocky thing. They didn't want him doing Rocky, and he was like, "Fuck you," you know. So,
right.
But when they brought, I mean, Vince Jr. saw something in Hogan that I mean, obviously Vern Gagne didn't see it, or if he did see it, he was having too much fun dicking him around. Obviously, Hulkamania is probably the biggest gimmick in the history of the business.
Yeah.
The yellow and red. It was, I mean, it literally changed the industry.
But
and
we in that same regards, and we've discussed this before, if we're gonna spotlight that, let's rewind a little bit further. And what was the prototype for that?
Superstar Billy Graham.
Of course. So, and anybody that knows anything about Vince Jr., he was infatuated with Superstar Graham, and he wanted to make the turn with Superstar Graham, something that his father didn't see.
Right.
So when he was given the chance and he was given the opportunity, maybe it was a little bit of, let me show you, Dad, what I would have done.
Sure.
And if I would have had a young Superstar Graham, oh, wait, I have a guy who idolized and, you know.
So Hogan's gimmick, the prayers, the vitamins, all of that stuff, clearly tailor-made. And I think that's the thing about Junior, is that he's thinking, he's not, I think the old man, I think Senior came at it from a television arena mentality for wrestling.
Right.
But Junior had bigger plans. He saw a wider picture.
Now, I think there's something else that's been kind of left out of it as well. And it comes from the blueprint of Memphis, Tennessee. Okay. Because Memphis was a weekly territory that ran longer than any of the other territories around. Right. And give the devil his due. I'm not a fan of Jerry Lawler whatsoever. I fucking can't. Anyways, if you look at Hulk Hogan and the actual physical comeback of his match, the I've had all I can stands, I can't stands no more Popeye approach.
Yep.
That was Memphis, Tennessee. That was Jerry Lawler. That was Jerry Lawler dropping the strap and making that comeback. And that's exactly the prototype as well. We've talked about when you're a conglomerate or there's many different departments that research many different things that are successful. And the same as any gimmick or whatnot, what was successful before it.
Right.
And for how many years did Jerry Lawler doing that same comeback? How many years did he?
Absolutely.
And that was what, and it wasn't storyline. They fed him and they fed him and they fed him and they fed him. And if you look at the blueprint for Hulk Hogan, that's the same exact thing that they did with him. They just fed him and fed him and fed him and fed him.
And they brought in all kinds of people to fight Hogan. You mentioned Jerry Lawler. Obviously, if we're talking about gimmicks, we have to at least mention Andy Kaufman.
That was not till, what was it, 20 years ago did they finally break kayfabe on that?
Yep.
How genius.
A long time. I mean, Kaufman's had been dead at that point for 10 years at least.
Right.
So yeah, but just the way that went over and the way that nobody, knew for certain,
Well,
what
again,
the deal was.
we talk about that the people who think they're so smart, they're the easiest to work because they want to believe. They want to
Mhm.
believe in it. So if you give them a little backstage or a little something to nibble on, that's where the manipulation can be the best. Because
Absolutely.
now they really, really believe. I know that that's a different Ultimate Warrior. Damn it, the Ultimate Warrior. You see what I mean?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And it's just a little something to nibble on, but they think they've got the inside, and that's
Right.
where the most beautiful part of the manipulation is. Because if you've got the smart fans, guess what the smart fans are going to do? They're going to talk down to the other fans because they know a bit more than them, and they're going to fucking tell them, and they're going to get them in line. Damn it, you better fucking think like this. And this is
But
the
they
way.
didn't know shit. So,
And all they're doing is cutting your promo for you.
which is nice, which is very nice.
That's
So, the King, there's another one of those gimmicks. Especially in the WWF, the whole King of the Ring thing and all of that.
Right.
I think maybe they only messed up that whole thing once, and that was with Mabel. Nope,
I knew Mabel actually, man. He was a sweetheart of a guy.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but nice things about the guy. Just
He gave me a splash once, and it was like being hit with a bouncy house. That's how fucking big this guy was. If you could imagine like a bounce house landing on you, he was a sweetheart of a guy. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. The whole King thing is again the flip side of the coin of the hillbilly gimmick.
Yep.
And we have that boss, or we have that manager, or we have that person who's established in their role that looks down upon everybody else as peons, and so again, it's a relatable thing to a degree.
Sure, absolutely.
And look at even recently, in our recent times, how just the word "we don't want no fucking king" has been used, and
right.
just that one word "king," and it's still marketable, it's still relatable, just in that one word.
Sure, absolutely. Which leads me to Dusty.
Okay.
Was the I've dined with kings and queens and slept in alleys eating baked beans.
Yeah, I've dined with kings and queens, but I've slept in alleys and I ate pork and beans.
Yep.
Wonderful. Go ahead.
Dusty was interesting to watch because he came into business. I mean, as a booker, open for discussion.
Well,
but
yeah, we'll go there.
but as a worker, as somebody who can go out there and cut a promo and make the crowd pop for an elbow, and I mean, he had that gimmick down good, and I think that I know that when they brought him over, when they brought him in up north, the polka dot thing was to screw with him, but that was the beauty of Dusty. He was like, fuck it, I don't care. He's like, I'll wear the polka dots and I'll still be Dusty Rhodes.
I think what's important is for any booker to have their hand on the pulse of what's going on in pop culture.
Yes.
And understanding that and being able to translate that into the wrestling business. And that's where Dusty had that ability, because he kept young people around him.
Right.
He might not have been onto it himself, but the people who were around him hipped him to it and whatnot. And
Sure.
yeah. As you talked about with Dusty, though, so many times with promoters or bookers, there's two differences. The booker puts together the show, the promoter promotes the show. Okay. So the booker, a lot of times, and we've seen it in the past, if the booker is still an active member of the roster, sometimes there's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And, you've seen it with Dusty. And this is no shot. This is just the facts.
No, everybody knows the Dusty finish. It's that's an established, trope in the business.
Not only that, but when the Road Warriors got over, what did you see?
Oh yeah, they put the spikes to Dusty's.
Well, that was later on.
Oh, that was later.
But first, you seen Dusty with makeup on, standing with the Road Warriors, associating himself with that. And then when Magnum TA got over, and when Magnum started to get hot, what did you see?
Dusty.
You seen the James boys.
I really wish like Magnum is arguably one of the biggest unknowns.
Yeah, the biggest
what ifs. I mean, he had the look, he had the work rate, he had, he could.
He had the politics behind him.
Yeah, and it's a damn shame because, I think what more he could have brought to the business, how much he could have changed the NWA, which I think. Let's talk about Flair for a second. And I think Ric Flair's been Ric Flair, the Nature Boy for a long, long time.
Right.
I don't even know if Ric Flair exists anymore as a person. I think he honestly at this point is just the Nature Boy. And not really, I mean, a gimmick, but not really. The jet flying, limousine riding, blah, blah, blah.
He was the gimmick.
Yes, exactly. And the fans, it always amused me when Flair was a face because all the shit that he talks and all of the, those $5,000 suits and, $15,000 watches, you're talking to people, underprivileged people. They don't want to hear about your, $5,000 shoes. That should piss them off. And it does when he's working heel. And when he works face, though, it's like,
understand how hard I had to work to wear this suit. Understand how hard every night it is to be the world's heavyweight champion. Understand that I come to entertain each and every one of you, putting my blood, sweat, and tears out there every night to be your world champion.
There's one thing,
and that's the simple subtlety
of the heel face Ric Flair.
And they can respect the guy who worked his ass off to get to that.
Okay.
But you can't respect a guy who had a silver spoon in his mouth.
Right.
And was braggart that he had it his whole life and it was just given to him. And you'll never understand that. And there's the subtle difference of babyface and heel.
That is a very interesting take on that. So less and less, I think with the gimmick changes, I think that there were fewer of them in the tag team ranks, than there were, for the singles guys. I mean, I guess like the Road Warriors, the paint and power gimmick always goes over well. Demolition, although there's a perfect example of, for some reason I always felt in the 80s like Vince was trying to play the fans as if they were stupid. You know,
Yeah.
like, oh, here's this guy. Yeah, he was here 3 years ago, but no, you've never seen him before. This is a whole new guy.
Right.
And you know, and that's what happened with Randy Cullen in Demolition. Is the fans immediately knew who he was, and that shot that whole thing to death.
Yeah,
But
they called him a moondog.
Yeah, exactly.
He was previously in the team of the Moondogs.
And so I really haven't seen, like, you see heel face changes, but I've never really seen a gimmick change for a tag team.
Right.
Usually, you know, when you go out, you're, you know, the Rockers, or you know, I mean, you've got your British Bulldogs, you know, you have your thing and that's it.
Right.
And it's unusual in that regard. I can't really remember any. Yeah, I mean, heels and face turns one thing, you know, but I can't really remember any tag team that. Well, one, the Godwins.
Okay.
The Godwins went from being the pig farmers to being Southern Justice.
Okay.
So, but really nobody fucking cared about Jeff Jarrett at that time, and they cared even less about Southern Justice. But that's really all I can think of off the top of my head is as being the only time that a real big gimmick change happened. Let's talk about the Warrior. Okay, so the Dingo Warrior, green as goose shit when they brought him up. They changed him to the Ultimate Warrior, and then he went away because he's a fuck up. And I'm sorry he's dead, but yeah, just because he's dead doesn't mean he wasn't a fuck up.
Sure.
And then he came back. And this is before the days of the internet, boys and girls. So the rumor was that Jim Hellwig had died.
Yeah.
And he was replaced by a new guy who a lot of people thought was Kerry Von Erich.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't see why Kerry Von Erich would want to become the Ultimate Warrior. And then obviously, you know, just, you know, his physique had changed a little, his hairstyle had changed a little, but it was, I mean, just listen to his promos. He's still the same guy, obviously.
Right.
But
here's the craziness is, what was that gimmick?
Ultimate Warrior gimmick?
Yeah. What was the gimmick? What, if you can explain that gimmick to me, I'll be more than happy to listen. What was that gimmick? And I think that's part of the uniqueness of it as well.
Well, I'll say this. I spent some time years and years ago in a psychiatric hospital.
Okay.
And I've met people who ramble at the sky for no reason. And that's kind of what Warrior's promo style reminded me of. Just crazy, like a crazy person screaming at the sky, making up words as they go along. But here's the thing I've never understood about him and the relationship that he had with Vince. He just kept giving chance after chance after chance. And he wasn't that good. And within 6 months after WrestleMania 6, I think everybody knew this was not the next Hulk Hogan.
Right.
You know, so the fact that he kept being given opportunity after, you know, I mean, he held Vince up for money at SummerSlam. He no-showed a lot of events. You know, the whole thing about, they played it off as if it was a gimmick with Gorilla Monsoon saying he'll have to post it. From what I understand, that was real.
Right.
And from what I understand, they were like, you need to sign this contract and agree that you're going to be here, 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 and here. And if you're not, your ass is out of here again. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the gimmick itself, it never, you know, and then he brought it to WCW, way past the point of anybody caring.
Right.
To wrestle in a rematch so Hogan could get his win back.
There you go.
Because that doesn't work for me, brother.
if you receive a phone call that says, hey, we'll give you X amount of dollars for 3 matches, maybe? Was it 2 or 3 matches?
3. I think he had a tag team match where he teamed up with Sting.
Right.
Because if they hadn't done that, the Smarks would have lost their minds. And then he had the god awful match with Hogan. And then they had he was in the fall War Games that year, in the worst fucking iteration of War Games I've ever seen in my life.
So I'll give you a comparison then, and we'll go with stubbornness of how much Vince Jr. was like Senior then. Okay, because Senior kind of made a bet, and I think it was with Eddie Graham, that he could take Bob Backlund and make him an attraction and make him world champion. If I remember that correctly. So it was truly Vince Sr. creating his all-American boy, because he had the ethnic heroes and he had the superstar and whatnot. So he needed and thought he could produce the all-American boy. Right. And that was him telling Eddie Graham, I can do this, I'll show you.
Right.
But if you look at it, how much sides were around that steak? All right. How much sizzle was around this?
Sure.
To create the sellouts that you had at Madison Square Garden for Bob Backlund.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, in that same vein, you've got the Ultimate Warrior. Okay. And now you've got the Son, who sees this, nobody else might see this, but he sees it, and he's going to stick to it, and he's going to show everybody else. Is part of what my thought process is with that. So it's kind of like father, like son. So I don't think anybody's ever compared Bob Backlund and the Ultimate Warrior, but that's what you get here. So.
Well done. Ready to take a quick commercial. We'll be right back. Alrighty, Misadventures of a Cryptid Hunter by Michael Kelso, available online, Amazon, I believe everywhere books are sold. Michael's a great guy, great writer, and if you're into Bigfoot and that whole stuff, be sure to check out his books. You'll really enjoy them. I would say that in the history of wrestling in the last 40 years, I don't believe there was a bigger year than 1996 as far as gimmick changes that happened that had an impact across the board.
Right.
And of course, the first one was Scott Hall.
Okay.
Now, coming in under his real name, which was kind of unheard of really at that time. Even wrestlers who were wrestling under their real name weren't really using their real name. Right. But Scott Hall was. And he came in and gave that famous speech and kicked off arguably one of the biggest angles in the history of the business.
Right.
And then Nash comes in and same thing. It's like, oh, this isn't Diesel. This isn't, Vinny Vegas. This isn't Oz. This is Kevin Nash.
Right.
And then Hogan happens. Now, popular theory or popular rumor about that for years has been that Hogan being Hogan, he didn't make the decision until like the last minute.
Right.
Bischoff has said that they had Sting lined up to be the third man if Hogan wouldn't go through with it. But I think Hogan got it. He understood, if I don't get on board with this, they're going to leave me in the dust.
Oh, yeah.
So Hulk Hogan becomes Hollywood Hogan. I would say probably the biggest gimmick turn alongside the response, which was Sting. So you take your two main characters prior to the NWO arriving, and then you turn Hogan heel, which I don't think anybody ever thought was going to happen.
Right.
And then you take Sting and you take him from being this, surfer boy, like, woo, yeah, to being this dark, brooding character who doesn't talk, who doesn't wrestle. And with those two actions alone, WCW changed not only their company's projection, but wrestling as a whole. The NWO thing changed everything.
Right.
And in the meantime, over in WWF, things are tough. But Stone Cold Steve Austin wins the King of the Ring that year. And that is where the 316 line comes from.
Right.
So there was something about 96 that just seems like these massive overhauls were destined to happen, because it really did change everything after that.
Yeah, I think what happened along those lines as well is, as we talked about, the market shifted as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that time, before that, wrestling was Saturday morning. Wrestling was cartoons. Wrestling was sitting with a bowl of cereal and watching your living cartoon characters.
Oh, yeah.
But then the shift happened, and then it became the show that's on at the bar. Then it became the end thing with the college students.
Yep.
And then you have to shift your marketing to go with that at the same time. And that's where I think that, to be able to keep up with times was a necessity. It was truly a necessity. Now, they also kept some of that cartoony stuff for their Saturday morning. But there was a big, big difference in the product.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday morning superstars and Raw.
Exactly. And
go ahead.
So, I think that, obviously Austin's impact on the industry it changed everything. And if there's anybody who's, I believe that he surpassed Hogan as far as merchandise money.
And here's the thing about it, though. As we talked about these gimmicks and whatnot, the thing that turned out to get over the most were the people being real or being themselves, not being a gimmick of sorts.
Sure.
Because that's where people could kind of sink their teeth into. The Stone Cold or the Steve Austin, everybody was living vicariously through, because they all wanted to flip off their boss. They all wanted to tell their boss to fuck off. So, and that was the vein that they had struck into. And with like the NWO, I look at them as like gangster rap in a pop culture. Okay.
Sure.
They came in as gangster rap in a pop market, and the people in the pop market are like, we're kind of tired of bubblegum.
Right.
We've had enough bubblegum. Hey, who's Tupac? Who's Biggie?
Right.
And that's where you could, again, we talk about pop culture and the shifts in society and whatnot. The same thing was going on in our society, and it played out physically. You could watch it physically in professional wrestling.
Absolutely. So all that stuff goes down and changes everything. The business went in a completely different direction. TV ratings started becoming a real thing. At one point in time, 10 million Americans were watching wrestling on a Monday night.
Right.
That's just wild.
But that's also a reflection of wrestling itself being peaks and valleys.
Sure.
And right now we're going through again a peak. And how many companies are out there right now, and how many different styles or genres of professional wrestling are out there as well.
Right. Right. And that's the nice thing about that is it's giving everybody the opportunity to find the type of wrestling that they like.
Right.
Because not everybody's a WWE style person. Not everybody's AEW style person. The indies have some great alternatives there. And, I've been paying close attention to a couple different federations, and there's some really good stuff going on. So as far as there's two more that I think absolutely have to be discussed, and they're connected. So we'll talk about them. The Undertaker and Kane.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those of you at home not familiar with Glenn Jacobs, he was Kane for 20 years, 20 some odd years. Now he's the mayor of some town somewhere. Knoxville. But prior to becoming Kane, Glenn Jacobs had some of the worst goddamn gimmicks in the history of wrestling. I swear to God. The wrestling dentist, the evil wrestling dentist. He was a Christmas creature, I believe, at one point in time. And of course, fake Diesel. Boy, what the hell were they? I mean, I know what they were thinking. They were trying to play big balls, but Jesus Christ, come on, man.
And as expensive as television time is.
Yeah, to waste it on that.
Yeah, I've helped produce television, and I know segments and keeping times to your segment and how much each segment fucking costs.
Right.
So when I hear different fans as they talk about, well, they're just killing this guy off and whatnot. Do you understand how much money they're spending just to kill somebody off in your mind?
Oh yeah. I mean, and who the hell thought a heel JR was a good idea? JR is one of the most beloved voices in the history of the fucking business. He's right up there with Gordon Soley.
Right.
But you had to make Jim Ross heel, and nobody bought it.
The Burl Ives of professional. Yeah. He's going to come out and sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer for you. And that's for a long time. Do you remember Walter Cronkite?
Yeah.
Walter
Cronkite. That's the way it is.
and yeah, so he was the trusted source of the news before Dan Rather. Man, how do I remember this shit? So once somebody becomes that trusted source, again, the Burl Ives with Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Oh, yeah.
That's who JR was. So
right.
If once you understand that, then if you really want to make him a heel, you make him the used car salesman of sorts.
Sure.
Trust me, as Jake Roberts would say, just trust me. Yeah.
I don't know, Jake. I don't know. So Mark Calloway. Mean Mark Callis was the first time I saw him.
Right.
As a replacement for Sid Vicious in the Skyscrapers.
I think I've seen him in Memphis before that myself as was it the Punisher or something along those lines?
I think he was like Texas Red or something at one point.
Oh yeah, world class as well.
Yeah. So he went through. He's another one. Went through a series of gimmicks. And I think that it's safe to say, and a lot of people have said it. Undertaker, greatest gimmick in the history of the business.
I would have to agree. As something that I didn't think would have the longevity that it did, but along the lines of Jason or Michael Myers or whatnot, that I think that's how it was ingrained.
Yeah. Oh yeah. they did a great job. With his with his debut, the guest on or the special, the member of DiBiase's team in the Survivor Series, and from there, it just he embraced it. And from what I understand, when he was out in public, he was the Undertaker.
Right.
Nobody knew who Mark Calloway was. If you ran into him, you ran into the Undertaker.
Right. I'll tell you a funny story with that, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes with my trainer, Tracy Smothers. And Tracy helped him along the ways when he was in Memphis and whatnot. And a lot of guys helped him along the way.
Sure.
And when Tracy got to the WWF, they brought him in under this shitty fucking gimmick of Freddie Joe Floyd and whatnot, which was a rib. It was a rib on the fucking Briscoes, because that Freddie Joe was Jack Briscoe's name, actually.
Yeah.
But Undertaker was looking at another worker by the name of Cloudy, who was a man dressed in drag, going kind of countering Sonny.
Right,
and
right.
He said, Undertaker said out loud, "Some people will do anything for a job." And Smothers said, "How long you been dead now?"
Nice.
Which didn't win him any favors, but
I'm sure it didn't.
There's the reality of it,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And some people again, they lost touch of where they came from, man. I'll always hold Tracy Smothers to the highest regard because of how many people he brought along with him. Man.
Sure.
When Tracy got the spotlight, he made sure I had a spotlight. He made sure somebody else had a spotlight.
Right.
Sorry, I drifted off of our subject, but God bless Tracy Smothers. Back to the gimmicks at hand. So like you were saying, the Undertaker gimmick, I don't think it was at first kind of put together with longevity in mind. But
right.
Again, as we said, along the lines of Jason or Michael Myers, and somehow it struck into that vein.
Yeah. Well, it's like, that's the question. It was like, how long are you going to get out of a gimmick like this?
Right.
Especially given, if you look at what followed afterwards, Papa Shango, short-lived.
Right.
Who else?
But they were doing, again, the same thing with The Undertaker that they were doing with Hulk Hogan, just on the flip side of the coin. They were feeding and feeding and feeding and feeding, and building and building and building. And that's the way it used to be done. I don't know about today. But.
Yeah, it's totally different ball game today.
Right.
So, I mean, there have been so many different ones over the years, so many different, in 95, it was like every wrestler in the WWF had another job.
Right.
Baseball players, garbage men, plumbers, which really,
that was them, I feel, trying to find a common ground, but they're in such a bubble.
Right.
And, the escape for people is not to be reminded of.
Work, exactly.
Yeah. So striking that common chord and whatnot can be something so subtle. Okay. And it doesn't have to be so in your face. And that's the beauty of the psychology of this. Why do people watch something that they know is already predetermined and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah? Why do they? Because there's no explanation. Okay. And that's one of the greatest terms or way it was said to me was, for some, no explanation is needed, and for others, no explanation will ever do. And that's professional wrestling.
There you go. There you go. That makes sense. I wonder sometimes, and one of the perfect examples of this situation, or two of the perfect examples for this situation, um, are Tito Santana and Ricky Steamboat.
Mm-hmm.
There was no reason whatsoever to turn Tito Santana into the Matador.
Okay, I'll give you a funny thing.
Uh-huh.
I don't even know if you know this or not. Tito Santana actually wrestled at one time under the name Richard Blood.
Okay. All right.
As crazy as that
That
is.
is crazy. That is
Yeah,
crazy.
as you brought up the two of them, there is actual footage of Tito Santana as Richard Blood, which is actually Ricky Steamboat's
Steamboat's real name.
Yeah, so that's crazy that you brought that up. But yeah, the Matador and then the Dragon.
Yeah. It's like it was Tito Santana. We knew who Tito Santana was. Why are you dressing him up like a fucking matador now? We know who Tito Santana is. Same with
More,
Steamboat. Although
more
I think that
action figures.
I think the Steamboat thing might have been a little bit of a punishment.
Yeah, more action figures, I think, as well,
Mm.
because you can. How many different variants now can we have? Because
Oh,
I do remember there was the Matador figure, as well as a Strike Force figure, as
mhm.
well as an actual Tito Santana figure. And those were
Yep.
all the LJNs, if I remember correctly.
He had two LJNs. He had Tito Santana, and he had it was either Can-Am or Strike Force, one of the two.
Right.
And then in the Hasbro line,
Okay,
I
was
think
the Matador.
it was the Matador, and I think Strike Force again.
Right.
So Tito, he's gotten his, but it was just so weird because it's like, God, it's Tito Santana. Why? He's
Right.
been in the company as long as I've been watching the company. Why are you trying to tell me he's a fucking matador now? Ricky Steamboat, comes back as a dragon,
Right.
literally a dragon. How fucking ridiculous is that?
Right.
And then maybe one of the worst ever, at least as far as being an awful taste, would have to be Saba Simba. I mean, I understand where Tony Atlas was at that time in his life, and that this was something that helped save him from the road he was going down. And I get that, and that's admirable. But come on, man. Really? Like,
and how much in their own bubble do they have to be to not understand that?
yeah.
That's
Well,
I have an idea. Let's try. Yes.
no, it's funny, and they still are. When they were going to rename Walter, the original name that they had chosen ended up being the name of like a Nazi fucking bomber pilot or something like that.
Yeah, and they just happened to come across that
Yeah.
name by chance.
Yeah, or back in WCW with Jeep Swanson, at one point they were going to call him the Final Solution, and it was like, no, that's bad.
Oh my god!
It's like, come on. I mean, and you look at it, it's unbelievable how, I don't want to say that they're ignorant, but I think that a lot of the promoters, especially in the 80s and 90s, were curious to see how far they could push the boundaries.
I'm sitting and I'm trying to think now. Is there even like is there a Maurice Tollett like the French Angel sideshow type gimmick out there anymore? No. Would somebody built like Jerry Lawler even get a second look in today's market?
No.
No matter how talented they are.
Right.
And
right.
So again, that's how much and how far the business has come. And what's an attraction anymore?
There isn't the business right now doesn't have an Andre.
Right.
It doesn't have, it doesn't have a Hogan. It doesn't, it doesn't have someone who literally could carry the company and did.
Right.
I got no problems with John Cena. I think John Cena is fine. Funny actor. I like him in some of the movies he's been in. He's not Hulk Hogan. He never was.
Right.
Um,
So my point being right now is, would the women be the attraction at this point? What is selling? What is the step right up, come right into the circus? You see, what is that today? I don't know.
I don't
I'm
know
not.
either.
Yeah, and again, the business seems to be at a peak.
Yeah.
And that's great, but it's going to valley sometime. It
Mhm.
just, and I'm not trying to sound
No, but it
bitter
is.
or
It
anything
is.
like that. But in order to maintain, or in order to take it to that next plateau,
Mhm.
you have to have that attraction.
Yes, absolutely.
Because
And
they're doing 2 days of WrestleMania now.
yep, in 2 days of SummerSlam for
So
no
again,
reason. For no reason.
what now becomes the attraction?
Well,
That's where I'm going to be interested to see, is somebody I don't follow anymore. I
right.
don't. Nothing has piqued my interest enough to turn it on me. So,
I,
what is going to draw somebody like me, who actually truly loves the business, to make me want to go, hey, let's take a look at this again?
well, that's the thing. Like, I had been on a wrestling hiatus until I discovered NXT back in 2015.
Okay.
And everything that was going on there was just so exciting. And I was like, yeah, I got to watch this. I don't watch the main product, main rosters or anything like that. But because at that point in time, Neville was, or, Pac was there, and Finn Balor was
You
there,
know
and
what?
Sami
The
Zayn.
last, I'll tell you the last attraction, and it just hit me.
Hmm.
And as crazy as it'll sound, once I start saying this, you'll be able to SAWFT. So that was an
Enzo,
attraction. That, as crazy as it sounds.
oh
You know
no,
what I mean?
and Enzo was the new Road Dogg.
And yeah, so where's that at now? That's
Yeah,
that's the last attraction that I can think off the top of my head that didn't have anything to really do with wrestling.
yep.
It was
Just
an
the people.
attraction.
The people were behind it. They loved his gimmick. It was sing along with Enzo,
And they
and
pay to do it.
absolutely, absolutely. Unfortunately, Enzo, couldn't keep his
So
mouth
there you
shut.
go. So there's a prototype. That's what we're talking about. If anybody's questioning, we can do that just off the top of our heads,
Right.
because it became an attraction. It became
Absolutely.
a must-see thing. Where is that, and where will we find that next? And that's my question.
That is an excellent question, because it's got to be out there. There's always somebody, whether it be Hogan or Flair or the Road Dogg, Michaels. There's got to be that guy out there. The Rock was probably one of the better ones over the years. So yeah, I got to think. I really hope that we're not going back to the days of wrestling plumbers and stuff. But something's got to be. We need a change here because it's stagnant.
Right.
Which is why the indie scene is once again, I think, starting to blossom, because they're offering things that are fun and exciting to watch. B, you can actually afford to go to.
And also, I think with pop culture moves so fast right now.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so there's not really long-lasting trends anymore as well
Nope.
that go with it.
A lot of fads.
So as quick as these things come and go, maybe the business is a reflection of that as well. If we're going to tie it together,
Sure.
what's the next big thing in pop culture?
Right.
And let's see if wrestling will tie in as well.
And here's the interesting thing about that. And one of the significant differences between like AEW and WWF and the indies is that the indies can change on a dime. If something happens on a Thursday and their next show is coming up on next Wednesday, they can change to reflect what happened on Thursday. With the bigger companies, everything's fucking pre-written, pre-scheduled, pre-fucking recorded. It would be very difficult, I think, for them today to be able to be like, oh, this just happened and now we have to change. I mean, the last time they did that was Benoit.
Well, not only, and I just thought about this as well. As hot as UFC is, they cannot market and they cannot do things the same as pro wrestling. They're all tied together in one big conglomerate. But the
Right.
reality of you cannot market fighters the same way that you do pro wrestlers.
Right. Because most of them have no real personality which to speak of.
Well, not only that,
not an outstanding personality.
well, not only that, their longevity as well, because they could get knocked the fuck out at any moment.
That's
So,
true. That is true.
You put $1 million, think about that with CM Punk. How much money, God bless him, he made a fortune. And I personally like Punk. I've known him since he got started. I haven't talked to him in forever, but I knew him once he got started. But he would be the example, I guess, of why marketing and whatnot does not, it works in a short term, but long-term marketing of stars in the UFC doesn't work the same as marketing and long-term planning in professional wrestling.
Yes, I agree.
That
100%.
would be my point.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up for today, my friend. It's interesting to see how, like, somebody going down, like in a tag team, like somebody going down with an injury opens up a whole new door to the other person. And they did it with Shawn Michaels when they split up the Rockers. He just became a pompous ass, and you wanted to hate him, and you wanted to root for Marty. Unfortunately, Marty had his problems at the time, so he wasn't around. Right. But it's always interesting to see when something like that happens, because it's always interesting to see what the new attitude is or the new character. Like, and to me, that's one of the things that I do love about wrestling is the fact that, this shit ain't working out for you. Okay, go away for 3 months, get something new together, come back, and we'll give it a go. And like I said, you can't do that, in UFC. You can't do that in boxing. You can't do that in any real other professional sport. So it's one of the things that keeps wrestling entertaining, and definitely stuff to keep an eye out for. So we will be back on Sunday for the usual WMW podcast. And I think we're going to have a guest lined up for that one. I do believe. I think we've got that covered.
Yeah, we'll work that out.
Awesome.
We'll stay tuned.
Yes. So, folks, we're going to go out on this last commercial break, and we will see you on Sunday. Thanks for tuning in.
Whoop, whoop.
And he looked out the window and he sees this guy with blonde hair, beautiful tan, and he had the trunks on. My old man, he's from California. I mean, he was fucking nuts, man. He was, in gangs and shit. And, come to find out, it's Buddy Rogers.